Engineer Suleiman Adamu, a former Minister of Water Resources, thank you so much indeed for sharing your views with us. We're keeping our eyes on the Umaru Yar'Adua International Airport in Katsina. Of course, earlier we told you about the arrival of a delegation from Niger Republic who have arrived to commiserate and mourn with Nigeria and the loss of the former Nigerian leader, Muhammadu Buhari. Moments ago, we saw the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, alongside Nigerian industrialists and the wealthiest man in Africa, Aliko Dangote. And on that, and around about the same moment, a former Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who defended the government under Muhammadu Buhari, also arriving. But let's talk to another person who served under the leadership of General Buhari. He's the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuko Yusuf Buratai, who is live for us virtually. Thank you so much, General, for joining us.
Thank you, Sean.
By far your senior in the military. He was your commander-in-chief. He gave you command to go to the forefront to fight the war against insurgents. But now this man had given up in fighting the war of life. He's now departed the scene. General Muhammadu Buhari. What would you say is your biggest and unforgettable moment with the former commander-in-chief, who is now going to take on yet another battle in the life beyond?
Thank you, Sean. I will say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. From God we came, and to him we should all return. He served this country diligently. He served with all his commitment to the unity, security, and of course, the development of our country. And I will say that I'm glad that I took part in the period he served as President, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, as his Chief of Army Staff. When he was the military governor of the Northeast, I think I was in school. I was still in school. And I had real privilege, to have even come across him, when he was the governor. But informally, I'm from far. But I think that when he appointed me as the Chief of Army Staff, he had a mission, and he gave his own directive. And if you remember, even during his campaign tours, he promised the restoration of peace and security across the country, especially in the Northeast. And he waited no time. The very day he was sworn in, he directed the return or the relocation of the Command and Control Center to the Northeast. And that was a major strategic move that he made, being a military general, and he knows the importance of locating the Command and Control Center, where you have a bird's eye view of the whole operation. And I took that as a very serious directive, and I did not waste time. The very day I took over as Chief of Army Staff, I moved, and of course, moved my tactical headquarters, the Army headquarters, tactical headquarters to Maiduguri, and I remained there. And as Providence will have it, the last day I served as Chief of Army Staff, the announcement, I spoke with him while I was in the Northeast, coordinating and directing the operation there, when he asked me to come back and then hand over to my successor. So it's a person, or he was a person who had that real love for Nigeria, and he believed that once you are given tasks, you are supposed to take it, go ahead, and plan and execute it according to his directive, and that was what I did. He is the person that has that command philosophy of giving you freedom of action. And I'm glad that we achieved results at the time I was Chief of Army Staff. You can see from 17 local governments across the Northeast that were under the Boko Haram, were under Boko Haram control, were recovered, and we degraded, as he promised, the Boko Haram terrorists, challenge across the Northeast. And of course, these challenges continue to evolve. And as we continue to see the challenges, we also address them as they can. So by and large,
indeed, Chief. General, indeed, the challenges continued to evolve. And as a result of that, I dare say that the president, your commander-in-chief, took bullets for you because it would seem that at some point people started to get agitated as to, yes, they have achieved results in the northeast of the country, but then, the security situation began to rear its head in the northwest of the country, which was baffling for a lot of people. And they thought that, perhaps there needs to be a rejig in the leadership. And the president, it would seem, was adamant. He said he didn't quite see what it was that new people were coming to do. As a chief who served under him, who served under his command, so to speak, how did that feel for you?
Well, first of all, let me correct this impression. He wasn't adamant. He was never adamant in terms of, getting the service chiefs replaced. And he had his own strategic, position. And of course, the issue was more or less political, rather than military strategic reasons for the service chief to be replaced. And if you see the progress he made as the president from the time, before he came and after his election and being inaugurated, you know what is happening. Just review back or look back, 2013 or even 2009, maybe up to 2013, 2014, and early 2015. What was the political situation? What was the security situation in the country? As close as Abuja, where you are, probably, bombings everywhere, roadblocks closed all over, and then you so-called, Jos, Kaduna, Kano, Bauchi, Potoskum, and so on. The whole of the Northeast was virtually under Boko Haram. Maiduguri, you can't move out of Maiduguri up to 5 kilometers radius without a heavy security or without being attacked by the Boko Haram terrorists. But at the time we left our service chiefs, these things were not there. We have completely degraded the Boko Haram terrorists. So whatever that came after for the clamor or the call for replacement of the service chiefs, well, to me, was more political and probably even personal. That's how I see it.
General,
so, but be rest assured, he was not adamant. He has his strategic focus, and he said, the work that we have done, he's satisfied with it, and he trusted us, with what he gave us as his task. So by and large, I think we did our best, and at the end, he further saw us that we shouldn't go far away from him, and he appointed us as ambassadors. That we surrounded the Nigerian, neighbors around our neighbors. That's Niger, Cameroon, Chad, Benin, and of course Ghana. So we are very close with him. Even when we left our service chiefs, he appointed us as ambassadors. That means he was very much satisfied, and he trusted us, and we delivered.
Well, Chief, I mean, I think that the jury will still be out as to, just how you fared. But when I was making reference to, military traditions, recently I had the privilege to be able to look at the average that military chiefs, especially chiefs of army staff, spend in office. Usually it's between 2 to 3 years. And you were one of the longest serving almost up to 6 years in office from 2015 to 2021. And so some people will say that that even distorted, well, I say, leadership within military ranks. So, I mean, you can always comment on that as a former military leader, former chief and all of that. But in terms of security, you must also acknowledge that whilst the Northeast fared well, and a lot of Nigerians acknowledge that, not least those who lived within the Northeast itself, saying that they did feel safer and things normalized. However, a new threat, which it would seem, we missed completely or we underestimated, so to speak, came up in the northwest of the country, almost derailing the progress that had been recorded in the Northeast. And you mentioned how Abuja, became safer, etc. Then we now recorded something where terrorists attacked a prison in Abuja, in Kuje, as a matter of fact, a few meters. A lot of people were counting how many kilometers it was to Aso Rock, etc. These were some of the challenges that came back, and people were wondering what exactly is going on. So there were these agitations, so to speak. Do you think that if he had a strategy, was he able to communicate clearly what that strategy was to at least calm people down, people who were agitated about the fact that he wasn't changing chiefs, to let them know that he really was on top of it?
Well, first of all, I may comment on the tenure of the service chiefs. I think, you see, the Armed Forces Act is very clear. While it prescribed 2-year term, but it can also be extended, at the will, of the commander-in-chief. So it's open. So as far as that is concerned, it is still within the Armed Forces Act, and which is an act of the National Assembly and Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So there is nothing wrong about that. Career progression, if you look at it, how many officers will become service chiefs within a service? So, just one or two probably will be from the Chief of Defense Staff from a particular service, But that is just by the way. And I believe every officer aspires to be chief of his service. And it is at the prerogative of the commander-in-chief to appoint whoever he wishes at any time, with the guidance of the Armed Forces Act. Well, you see, I believe you remember the activities that we continued during President Buhari's period from day one. There was no period no quarter of the year that passes, for the length of period I served, we've never had a lull period where we don't have one exercise or operations or the other. So, strategy demands constant, activity, constant reevaluation, and constant action, so that you'll be able to contend and nip any of those security challenges, in the bud. So, from Crocodile Smile, from Harbin Kunama, from Ayam Apatuma, and then to Python Dance, that is Python Dance, and so on. We have conducted every quarter one exercise. So you see, we maintain high level of security across the country. And we have received several threats on this, jailbreak, as well as attacks on several other installations, strategic national installations. But we had always been proactive, and to make sure that we contain, such situations. And, that particular jailbreak, before we left, we had that threat, but they couldn't achieve it because we were able to maintain it. I'm not saying, blaming any other, set of service chiefs, but the point is, there is need for constant, evaluation of intelligence and constant check, and you must have constant activities continuously in order to stem the challenges. And it is not just mere the service chiefs. It is comprehensive. apart from the intelligence agencies, the police, and even the local community and the leaders, they have very important role to contain the insecurity we have in this country. So you can't blame the service chief at any time, you know, because it's a collective effort. And by the time you put the blame on the service chief, it's a complete interpretation of something else that probably that is a system failure if care is not taken. You know, so the military, you know, is just one arm of
but General,
the totality of strategic efforts for a national security and defense to be achieved.
General,
yeah.
You know, you've been holding the guns and commanding the artilleries over the years, so you perhaps not being on the street as much as a lot of us. The expectation when the Buhari government came into office is the insecurity was at an all-time high in the country. And perhaps a question my colleague Mark was trying to drive home is how far the security was fought. And put it in context, right, is the fact that Nigerians were expecting that all their insecurity problems were going to be solved by this man who is not going to take any nonsense. And he now topped it up with the fact that he's going to be on the ground and he's going to take the command and control center right in the middle of the war. So a lot of Nigerians had high expectations, but when the government after 8 years was getting out of power, the insecurity was still with us. Does it look like it's kind of disappointment? Maybe what Buhari wanted to do, it could not achieve as far as security is concerned.
Well, Buhari has achieved, achieved that objective. And it's unfortunate that we had, very high expectation. I'm happy I listened to Suleiman Adamu, the former minister, who spoke on the fact that he gives a task and he expects you to do it. I also repeated it earlier, in my remarks. So you see, the high expectation of Mr. President, by the generality of Nigerians was as a result of the fact of the terrible situation that we are in. Complete breakdown of security. Abuja was threatened. If your federal capital is threatened, then it means it's a serious issue. But as at the time he left, Abuja was no longer threatened. After the first 2 years, Abuja was no longer threatened. It's a major achievement. And we should know that fundamentally. It's very important, And we push the challenge back to the fringes of Borno and then Niger Republic and Chad Republic fringes. That was what happened. And you can see how serious it was. But all of us must appreciate what President Buhari left for us. He pushed them from our capital, our federal capital, now back to the wilderness. So it's a big achievement. Well, there was high expectation, But the issue of the Northwest, there was intelligence report, and he was aware that when the Northeast, was degraded, the next area will be to the Northwest. He had that intelligence, and he never sat back. We push and also make sure that we contain the challenges in the Northwest, But the point is, as I said, it's a combination of every element of the national security, aspect that must play, including the resources, including the state administrations, as well as all other security agencies must work together to ensure that these challenges are contained. The Northwest is something that can be addressed, quickly, and so far so good. I have been following what is happening in the Northwest. The military and the other security agencies are progressing. challenges of such magnitude must be taken, continuously without break. And I'm happy the service chiefs presently are pushing for that, and they're doing it in collaboration with other security agencies. Remember, if you look at example of other countries, I have been to Colombia, I have been to Bangladesh. Colombia is over 50 years of insurgency that they suffered, but it took time. We are happy we are not yet up to that number of years. But I believe Nigeria is up to the task, the military is up to the task, the government of the day, I believe, also is up to the task. They are not leaving any stone unturned to ensure that the security is maintained across our country. So what is needed is for consistency. There shouldn't be any break in terms of intelligence gathering, in terms of execution based on plan, intelligence analysis, or what you call intelligence assessment, and then you intelligence estimate, then you move in and deal with that challenge immediately.
General,
so
let me jump in quickly.
To have, achieve the results.
Let me jump in quickly. Sure. When the president took ill, there were a lot of stories as to what caused it. I'm talking about the former president, Muhammadu Buhari. And I'm wondering whether there will be a closure in terms of the information the Nigerian people are privy to. And maybe tonight, or this morning, you might be able to give us an insight. As the Chief of Army Staff, it will look as though there is a mutiny because there are talks about how some attack came through his office into the vent, which led to the sickness and all that. As a chief of the army staff, what came to your mind at first? What information do you have? Is late now, but what information, what can you tell us? What really caused it? What happened?
Well, this is a national, security issue and intelligence as well. I have spoken on this in the past. Health issues, as we saw it, is more or less a family issue, it's a personal issue, it's a confidential matter. And I believe the appropriate agencies, had addressed it the way they deem fit. And I believe whatever happened, we're glad at the end he recovered from whatever sickness he was afflicted with. And he came and completed his 8 years as President, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces. So by and large, I believe that it is a national, complex national security issue, which the appropriate intelligence agency, had handled it.
But General, are you worried about the breach?
Whether it is,
are you worried about the breach at the time? What efforts were made to?
You see, we have different roles. Okay, if there is breach of security, we have our different roles. I have told you the appropriate intelligence agency had handled it as at that time, and they were able to recover and do, evacuate Mr. President, and we thank Almighty God. He has recovered, and this is his time, and we pray Almighty Allah will repose his soul and grant him eternal rest.
Before I allow you go, General, this man that you served under, your commander, and there are a lot of people who were following you, who were your mentees on the ground, who you were commanding across the different battalions. What would you say is the legacy? On one hand, for the military, because you were the man who oversaw the military, the army, on behalf of the president, the GCFR, and on one hand, as the leader of the nation, to keep Nigerian people safe. What legacy would you say Muhammadu Buhari left, military-wise, in the army, and in terms of security?
Well, thank you very much. Great legacies. First of all, in the army, reprofessionalization of Nigerian Army capacity building, where we have formidable, strong officers that have been left behind, and we have seen their capacity. And I'm glad almost all the service chiefs, especially in the Army, I've worked very closely with them. I have tasked them in different capacities, and I saw their results, and they have done very well, and they are still doing very well. I'm proud of them. All the service chiefs, the CDS, Chief of Army Staff, and of course the Navy, Chief of Naval Staff, and Chief of Air Staff. Specifically for the Army, you can see the modernization of the Nigerian Army. I think we've never had it so good, in terms of modernization. Today we are far ahead of other armies in Africa and other parts of the world in terms of cyber warfare. We have also established that Land Forces Simulation Center. And we have improved and increased the strength of the Army and more formations. And we have the Special Forces Command, which are quite formidable. And I believe also in terms of training, teaching, these are legacies that we have left, and it has continued. I don't want to reflect back on some of those things that we are not in a line, but I believe in terms of uniformity in our training, in our kitting, we have achieved that. Is that legacy that Buhari has left that is still being practiced? Right. I'm happy it has continued. In terms of national security, you can see that the focus and what has been left, in terms of even coordination with our neighboring countries, with the multinational joint task force, the need for synergy with our neighboring countries is something that is quite fundamental. Our borders have remained porous, and we need really to coordinate and cooperate and operate together with our neighboring countries. Recently, not long ago, General Sidi Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff, was in Niger Republic to sign an agreement in order to continue the collaboration. The MNJTF will still maintain the Nigerian military, officer is still the commander there. And I believe we have set a legacy in terms of institutions. The war colleges of the Army, Navy, and Air Force are there. And I'm glad also the Nigerian Army University is a masterpiece that requires, the support of everybody to ensure that the Nigerian Army University, strives. And it's a major breakthrough, so that the military capacity building will continue in that regard.
General, thank you so much for your time. A real loss to the nation and to the Nigerian Army. A soldier who has now bowed out and paid his final salute to the nation and to this life, in person of Muhammadu Buhari. Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, a former Chief of Army Staff. Thank you so much indeed for your time on our special coverage of the passing and the burial rites for former President Muhammadu Buhari. Thanks so much indeed.